Hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Jamie Cherwonka. I'm the R&D Director for Data Visualizations, and today I'm going to go over some of the changes we made in Dundas BI version 4 involving our data visualizations. My colleague Ariel showed off many of these recently in the first What's New webinar, and I'll just be going a little deeper into some of them, explaining how you can use them, how they work, as well as some of the other things that are new. Also, feel free to ask questions during or after the demo. I'll be able to answer some questions at the end as well. Standard disclaimer, this webinar is focusing on what's new in Dundas BI 4 and doesn't cover all the basics. So if you're new to the product, it's recommended to find some of our previous webinars, or you can also attend one of our demos. So I'm going to go into a new metric set. So the first thing you might notice when you're creating a visualization is the visualization you get initially may not always be a table if you didn't ask for a specific visualization or if you didn't customize a visualization. The one we choose for you, it might not always be a table. So in this case, I happen to select a measure and a time dimension. So the best option in this case is a line chart. And if I open Revisualize here, I can see this is actually highlighted, and this indicates that we chose this for you. But there are also some other recommendations that you can choose from. This changes as you select different data based on the data that you're currently looking at. But you can always find every option further down on the toolbar or in our formulas. In this case, bar chart is also, in some cases, a good option. It's just for comparing individual values rather than looking at trends, which is what's better with a line chart. So if I start again with just some different data, in this case, it's a bar chart that we chose automatically for you. We can see that highlighted here. We also made this a horizontal bar chart automatically, which is not always the case. In this case, the text is longer and it just happens to be easier to read that way. But with any bar chart, you can always find the option to choose vertical or horizontal bars or columns in the toolbar here. And one of the other recommendations, there's a little bit of a change here in how we differentiate between a point chart and a scatter plot in version 4, so I'll just explain that during this session. The point chart you would use this in the same situations you'd use a bar chart, so you might have categorical data along the x-axis like we do here, but if you have, let's say, data that have multiple values closer together, and you were trying to maybe better see the differences, small differences between those values, the point chart has an advantage that the bars don't. The bars should always be displayed with an axis that starts at 0. This one does not. If you did this with a bar chart, it would be misleading. But with a point chart, you could do this. And so this allows you to compare the individual values. One of the other recommendations here, just because this happens to be geographical data, is a map. So we will automatically, pop this up here if we recognize that this is actually going to display well in a map for you. I'll go into maps in a little more detail a bit later. Something else here. So if you do drag a table, as always, as before, and still now, if you drag a table, we'll want what what this allows you to do is see the data in that table as it originally was in, your spreadsheet or your database, and so you're going to get a table. But what in this case is just another example of the recommendations that we automatically generate. We can more easily produce a range bar chart. Well, hmm. It's not quite what what was happening on the other machine, so we'll look at that later. But anyway, moving on, just having a look at some of the other recommendations that we make. I'm going to drag a dimension or hierarchy on here that has quite a few values. And what we happen to do in this case, just because there are so many, if you wanted to look at this data, we'll make it a little bit easier to scroll through them to see to compare what these values are. But I'm going to keep going with some additional measures. So with two measures here and quite a few values, one of the good recommendations we can make is a scatter plot, and this allows you to look for a correlation between between these measures. What you can see that's it's been improved in version 4 as well. We automatically assign these titles for you so you can more easily identify what these measures are and the currency. So in this case, I happen to be using a cube from an analysis services database, but of course you can define all this information in our own data cubes in Dundas BI, so a currency for certain measures and so on, and that will automatically be assigned to a chart for you when you select that data. Another minor note here, I'll just drag on a couple of other measures. You'll notice the axes are following 0, so that happens now by default if your axes have negative values, but you'll find settings that can customize that in properties. That's the cross other axis setting. So these are just the initial settings as well. These measures got assigned in this particular way for you, but as always, you can change these. And again, once you make a customization to the visualization, we're of course going to save those changes. We're not going to automatically revisualize or anything like that. So when you see an automatic visualization, when we automatically choose a visualization for you, that's just the initial visualization. So one of the options you'll have here when you've got multiple measures is a correlation matrix. So I happen to be in the metric set designer right now. That's where I started out. But some of these options, and you'll notice several of these that were here in previous versions, some of these are based on a formula metric set, which is where you create a formula that looks at some existing data, such as we have here with many rows of data, and it creates a whole new metric set based on this. And the metric set, of course, is just the metric set designer here is just focused on one metric set at a time. So if you choose something like a correlation matrix, you're going to notice we got sent automatically to the dashboard designer, which is where we can work with multiple metric sets at once. So what happened here is we produced a new formula metric set, and if you peek behind here, you'll notice this is a formula measure. You could create this yourself if you want to, but that option in the toolbar is convenient. So you can use any number of measures here. There's just 4 in this case, but what so as Ariel mentioned, blue, he showed the same feature. Blue indicates a positive correlation. Red indicates a negative correlation. Stronger colors mean a stronger correlation. If you want to, you can add a legend, but these are sort of this is a common way to display colors for these kinds of values. You can also hover over the individual values if you wanted to. So this summarizes the correlations for each pair of measures all at once, and you can see if something surprises you or if you want to investigate something further. So let's say in this case, a couple of those measures here, I'll pull back up into scatter plot. So average sales amount, gross profit with the dimension. So another thing in passing here, you can add a trend line, and that just helps you more clearly. That just more clearly indicates if there's an actual pattern there, and you can see if it appears to fit the data. So I'll go back to this original table here. This is the data we were working with originally. One of these other options here, this is a little bit more of an advanced visualization if you're looking into correlation between measures, but we make it easy to produce. You'll notice in this case, for example, so there's a lot of lines here, but what this does allow you to do is see patterns in what the relations are between the measures. So each line in this case is a product, one of these products in the rows here, and the axis is showing a percentage of each measure's range of values. So this allows you to compare measures with different ranges of values and even different units all at once, which is something that might be difficult otherwise. So in this case, we can actually see it appears that the highest profit items actually correspond to lower customer counts and vice versa. So those sorts of things might interest you or surprise you. You can investigate individual products that are showing up here if you want to with a tooltip. This works with data brushing as well. So you can use a table like this or the data preview panel. He's always here as well. So just for some of our more advanced users, just to explain a little bit this metric set, this happens to be a transposed metric set, which is a little bit more of an advanced option. And that just means instead of a row for each product, which is what we initially have selected in the metric set here, and a column for each measure, when it's transposed, you've got a row for each measure and a column for each product, and we can see that here in data preview as well. So in a chart, that means a line series for each product instead of a data point, and a data point for each measure in that line. So if you didn't follow that, don't worry. That option in the toolbar bypasses some of those settings if you're not as familiar with them. So while we're in the dashboard designer here, just another tip: if you are dragging data on, you're doing a bunch of things on a dashboard designer, these drop zones are available in the dashboard designer where we have a few more of the advanced things. So just as an example, if you started dragging data onto the dashboard, and you dragged another measure, you would always get a table initially, as before. If you drag your second measure onto column, you're asking for something specific. You're asking specifically to add a column to this table. So of course we're going to give you what you asked for. It's not going to automatically revisualize. As well, you can always add a specific visualization up here from the toolbar. If you know what you want, it's not going to automatically revisualize, but we do have this new option, Smart, which just does the same thing we've been looking at, where it may change to reflect the data that you've selected. So if I go back to some of that data we were looking at before, again, if you've got data that's geographical in nature, we will automatically recommend a map there in the toolbar. Of course, you can always find it in the toolbar like you always could. But what we do is look at what's going to be what data is going to be a match. And if you choose a map, we'll also choose the columns that that are going to work best. So if you have additional columns that are just meant for additional details to show in tooltips, or in this case, we have a continent. We had a continent column, but it's not really going to work well in context, and so we didn't automatically assign that there. I'll show what we mean by that next. If I go back to the table, just remove country. So if I just have continent here and I choose the map, you'll notice this message in the taskbar. If you missed it, don't worry. We've got more details in the properties. So what we're doing here is just making sure you know, because it can be important if you have some data that doesn't have any match in our maps, we let you know about it. So in this case, Pacific is not really a continent, so you know it didn't show up. But now that we know that, we can, if we want to, oops, Pacific. We can add a compatible name here so that something appropriate comes up as a match. Something else that we improved to just make things easier. So this small data set has just the province codes, just like the two-letter acronyms that we commonly use in the US and Canada. So that's also going to work. Of course, if you revisualize to a map, and so different codes that you might have for countries, you'll find that those work more easily with the maps. Just another note. So you also find if you noticed, if you missed some of the standard features before in some of our visualizations, like data brushing, you'll notice that those have all been, those are all standardized. So you'll be able to use data brushing in any visualization, as well as other common features like states for doing conditional formatting and notes. So you won't be missing those anymore. So next, I'd like to show our new visualization that we've added. The other visualizations that I showed earlier were possible before. We just made them easier, and we've added that recommendations engine to make things easier. But we've added the Sankey diagram, which is a new type of relationship diagram, you'll find those together here on the toolbar. So this is like our existing relationship diagram that we had before. It's not limited to any specific type of relationship, but it supports displaying hierarchical data, and that's what we would do initially by default. So I can show that here. If I just drag data on and let it so I'm going to replace this column with a multi-level hierarchy, but of course you can also just add multiple columns or dimensions or hierarchies. Those are displayed the same way. We display the hierarchical nature of that data in both the existing relationship diagram and the new Sankey diagram. So that's what we've done here. So if you have data that you want to display in a diagram like this, this is this type of diagram is specialized in showing flow. So how the quantities break down, and it's laid out from left to right. So there's a particular type and layout of the nodes and the links between them. So I'm going to show a different type of data results. So rather than hierarchical data, both of our relationship diagrams are able to show any type of relationship, not just hierarchical. So if I revisualize this data, so this has just a row of data where, each row of data in this data set is about a link between two things. So in this case, is showing energy consumption originating from some source and consumed in some target. So if I revisualize this to a Sankey diagram and I assign which column is the target, a quick tip here, if you hold Shift, you can move target instead of copying it. Otherwise, you can just remove target from above. Once you've assigned a target, we can show more advanced types of relationships. So that can look a little bit messier, but this type of diagram is able. So our relationship diagrams are capable of showing any type of complex relationships. And if you need to, you can move the nodes around by dragging them to get a better look. So you may find the benefit of this type of diagram is that you may find relationships that you didn't expect. And the key benefit here is being able to see these relationships, which is not well displayed by any other type of visualization. You may also have measures that are optional that you can display at the same time. So this data is all about, so far, just the links. We can see that here in the visualization tab of our data analysis panel. It's all under links. So with both relationship diagrams, if you have data that corresponds with each node, you can also add that as well. Right now, so of course each node can have multiple links coming in or out of it. So what you would want to do is have another set of data that's aggregated for just the nodes if you wanted to display more information about the nodes. I don't have a different data set in a different data source to start with here, so I'm just going to drag from the data source, but it is aggregated by the nodes. And what you're able to do with both types of relationship diagrams, but this applies to the new Sankey diagram as well, is display information in, let's say, tooltips, or to color the individual nodes by adding another metric set. So what you might find with this particular diagram, it's going to find the layout that works best from left to right, but just imagine if the data that I had in this case had also links coming out from all these nodes on the far right to the left, you would actually see some looping around on the top here, and that might be an indication that this is not really the best suited relationship diagram. This is a little bit more specialized. So we do still have the original relationship diagram that we added in version 3, which is known as a force-directed graph. That's a little bit of a technical name, but you can also use that diagram. So a couple of new things about this diagram in version 4, and it's similar to the Sankey diagram. So there is an option to automatically zoom the diagram in or out to fit the space of the diagram. You can move the nodes around because this type of diagram is actually designed to be automatically produced based on your data. The data can be changing. It can really handle any type of relationships that you might have, but sometimes, things may not be the way you want it. You can sort of temporarily move nodes around. You might find that useful. So just a note about this, just another quick note about this. So any type of relationship that can exist can sort of be represented by this type of data when you have a source and target. So that's when you might want to assign these. Okay, I'm just going to move on to a quick new feature. So in this case, I've just got a table. If you don't recognize it, I just applied one of our styles that are built into the application. So tables don't always, so this table has sort of the minimal amount of spacing and lines that you might need. But anyway, I happen to have a filter here. So we've just added another type of animation. So like our other animations, we don't add these just to make them look cool, but they're really centered around when data changes to help viewers notice that the data has changed, or what's new in this case is how the data has changed. So we do that with charts. You probably noticed it's designed to allow you to see what that something changed as well as how it changed. So in the table, if you've enabled this option, we already had an animation you could enable if you wanted to. There's a new one. So you may have noticed there the values that went up actually moved up. The values that went down, what was I doing here? Moved down. If you may not necessarily want to do this while you're filtering data, but this can apply to any data changes if you have different interactions on your dashboard, or especially if you have a real-time dashboard that's automatically refreshing with data that's changing. Maybe only one or two values might change at a given time. So, so you notice here the values that did change kind of called your attention out to them. So this is just a new setting you'll find with the existing animation settings and properties, along with the other animation type we already had, which is called highlight here. So we've gone over these new features. The uh, the recommendations engine, along with these new options, the data bar, table, correlation matrix, parallel coordinates, and so on. Um, that's pretty much all I've got to show initially here. But if you want to look at what's next, you can learn more about Dundas BI if you get a demo or talk to your account executive and solution architect. Who can help you better understand how Dundas BI 4 can help you. You can also upgrade if you're an existing user, or try it yourself if you're new. So the remaining time we can use to answer questions. Please, if you haven't already, type any questions you have into the webinar panel. Thanks for joining. Hi, so this webinar was really focused on the data visualizations. So there are, of course, many other features that are related, but still handled a little bit separately, such as new features in our dashboard designer, laying out items. You can, if you didn't see them already, you can find our other webinars where Kevin showed some of those alignment features in the reports that can also apply to dashboards in some cases. Uh, uh, there are smart filters that are available in our dashboard designer. So you can either have a look back for the other webinars, or have a look at our release notes that they list in detail all the various features you can get out of the new version. Hi, so we've got some specific questions coming in that are a little bit more for about a specific use case, so we'll be happy to get back to you in writing. Well, right back in the webinar or by an email. Um, but Okay, I think we're ready to wrap up, but thank you everyone for joining. We welcome your feedback. So please send that into us if you have any.